my research question is how to investigate the blended space and object in which we live and work in order to explore, discuss the new working mode, and how can it affect the future work ethic in the area of telecommuting. Telecommuting is also called remote working. It means in a flexible workspace without working in office buildings, and work ethic is a belief that work and diligence have a moral benefits and the inherent ability, virtue, or value to strengthen characters and individual abilities. And my introduction is in recent years, globalization, economic turmoil, and technological change have been the catalyst for many changes in the broader workspace. The phenomenon of work from home accelerated by the pandemic, which blurs the boundaries between work and rest. With the erosion of the boundary between work and leisure, how is work ethic redefined? What will be our work ethics in the future? Through my project, I hope to explore how the new working mode of mixing space affects the relationship between people and work by investigating home object and space to question the never-ending work ethic. By through inquiry, can visualize the workspace, inequalities arising from the remote work, and the optimizing productivity. I started to review. First, I started to data collecting and analysis on the social platforms, and also gather pictures to analyze them. And my first experiment I do is to gather the text from both Ins and Xiaohongshu to see the hidden information from the text, also from the text they are posting to see what are the really text that they are willing to share. And by the practical review how to work better remote, and this correlates around the dimensional difference between labor and work and play. And this project names slogans for the 20th century. I think can be considered as ways of motivational poster, and these words consist of short statements that being printed on bright color backgrounds that echoes forms and colors of the standardized paper found globally in office environments. And influenced by the motivation poster, I have produced experiments, and the intention is to point out the never-ending business set of objects that we are used more frequently. And the other second research is the office from Casey, and it offers me a way of analyzing the workspace. And also I do a research to just to position the workspace from home, also from the office, to see the difference by analyze the objects. And also I use the method of photography and typology to categorize my working object on my table and to find some similarities. And this is a project from Chenxi named My Bed, and in this work, the bed becomes a subconscious and becomes seen as a medium that reflects the truest inner being of a person. And through the experiment, I want to point out that because we usually describe home as a warm and cold space, so as the bed, I want to use bed as symbol to point out the fact that the function of the bed has been changed since people start to work from home. And I used the method of index, and this experiment helped me to develop the reorganized information's ability. And then it's the literature research named Late Capitalism and the End of Sleep. It said that when we sleep, we don't buy, sell, make anything. And also, 7th, the 24 is the subtended, and the logic of the unending capitalism is put on pause. And it criticized that the company society, human life into duration without breaks. defined by a principle of continuous functioning. And then I create an experiment named Bad Office, and I will produce more to create a series to point out the bed is no longer a safe place, and I will using other objects to also create. And then I have done several interviews to ask people in London to share about their workspace and tell the stories between them and their working objects to me. And also I found some interesting relationships, and then I use also the typology to divide them by two parts, which is the working objects and ledger. But this time I divided more categories to see that the more function of the objects on the table. I think the visual language is interesting, so I think it's can create a books of index also with more categories and more interviews and the more colors you have, this means that the objects contains more functions than emotional and more than working as a working object. And then this is a practical review. It's a subject lead context about workspace community. And these projects use the workspace from all over the world, which gather from the virtual workforce from all over the world, and it tried to criticize their living conditions and also the inequalities they are facing, situations they are facing. The playboard from the Redina, and I think she focused on the YouTubers and photographers as kind of workers to point out the English abilities of their works, which is also related to their content. And also this is a kind of a boundary of work and the rest is blurred. So this is related to my subject. And through reading the books of entrepreneur, and it said that the problem is that an era is no longer considered by a clear throat between work and leisure. And also it said that the personal productivity is aesthetic dimension of the work aesthetic. And about today, being wealthy does not mean having more times, but being more overbonded. And the summary of my primary and secondary review that I use a different kind of method to produce my experiments to deal with existing visual material. And I think the subject lead research I found, and by observing how they use the workstation to tell the story, and also the method they created the workspace to produce it, I think this is meaningful to my Unit 4. And then it's the preview part that first is the scope and boundaries, and I will use home working objects as space as the main tool to observe it, and continue with the three of inquiry because they are associated with each other. I use different color to tell people that this is the thread I want to go further with, which is in each inquiry. And the material I want to work with is pictures, resources gathered from interview, online network, and 3D modeling by myself. And the strategies I will use is speculative design. We're seeing a case study in speculative everything that it has the situation that everyone can live more than 115 years old. This will existing many problems with the society, and also with my problem I also want to imagine an extreme bad or extremely good situation to point out my problem, maybe create fiction stories. The resources I will use is mainly based in LCC, And the audience I choose is also suffer from remote work from home, and the type of worker I currently investigate is now focused on the design technology workers of virtual workforce, which is the new existing creative class. And the form I can think of my project now is maybe on an exhibition or website. And the possible output, I think, maybe a set of working object identity design or website or 3D modeling software to create a scenario. And finally is the schedule part, which I have mostly considered about the preliminary part that I can do now, and I will think more about the further part. That's all. Thank you.